Doesn't matter.
All right,
Call
you are recording, so we're live.
I think nowadays with our with notes, they're pretty bare bones. So.
Yep.
All right, so this is a joint meeting of the Board of Finance and Town Council Committee on General Government related to ARPA. I think from an attendance standpoint, we have to take roll, correct, Tucker?
You should at least
Yep.
You should at least say who's there. Yeah.
All right, so we have Amy is here, Christina is here, Maria's here, I'm here, and we are missing Penny.
Okay.
Okay, and on the agenda today are two topics. One is, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to get the name of the vehicle type, but there's a $250,000 ARPA request for a emergency
replacement incident command unit.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
And then we have a $250,000 request by the town players. Both items have been approved by the Board of Selectmen. Now they come to committee, and my hope is that we can at least move these along to allow broader Board of Finance and Town Council to address these topics.
Mark, could I ask you, is there also like 250 for Mead pavers?
Yeah,
That's on
that
hold.
was tabled. That was tabled.
Okay,
Amy.
thank you.
So yeah, that was originally on the agenda, but it was pulled. So we're just focused on these two items today. And with us, we have Russ Kimes, who can take us through, and Patricia, I see her, she's also on as well. So who'd ever like to go first? I perhaps Russ, since you're unmuted, I'll choose you first.
But
Sure.
Mark, before we go into that, when you and I had talked yesterday, you just touched on it, and I want to make sure I understand. You're not necessarily looking for this group to endorse either of these projects. As you said, you just want to now be able to vet it to some extent and then move it on to the greater groups.
Yeah, my goal is to, similar to the Board of Selectmen, is to move it along. I mean, we have a very capable group of Board of Finance members and Town Council. It's a much, I mean, there's only 5 of us, one from the Board of Finance, 4 from the Town Council. So we're not, I don't think we represent the bodies quite as well. You know, hopefully we could just move it on and then let the larger groups deliberate over the item.
Okay, that was my understanding. Good.
Yeah, I mean that's my goal. That's one person's opinion, but I think it's
And Mark, aren't we basically supposed to almost opine on whether it's an appropriate use of ARPA funds, not whether this is how we would choose to use it? That would be on our scope, right? It's more that it's in aligning with the goals and objectives of how ARPA money is to be
right.
spent, correct?
For example, just to rehash for everyone, to Amy's point, you know, one of the criteria was you know, we prefer capital over ongoing operating. So you know, these could be deemed one-time capital expenses. I realize there could be questions as to the costs associated with them on a go-forward basis, but again, those probably are better served in the broader context of the Board of Finance and the Town Council. So yes, Amy, to your question.
Good.
So with that, Russ, take it away.
Okay, thank you. And I will attempt to keep it brief, but answer whatever questions you may have. Been a busy morning with the train derailment. Thankfully, no minor injuries were reported. So let's see here.
Hopefully,
I'm going to make you co-host.
Thank you. I was just about to say I can't share.
There you go.
Excellent.
Russ, how long will it take them to get that line up and running?
I don't know the answer to that question. Last time they did this in the snowstorm, they had to bring a crane in, de-energize the circuit, bring it back. It was quite an operation. So,
So I won't be leaving out of New Canaan tomorrow. That's basically the.
Oh, but you should know that any lumberyard permits, we're allowing them for Talmadge Hill tomorrow. If last time they had the line go as far as Talmadge Hill, we're getting
Yes.
more information on that.
Yeah, I think they're currently doing that. So that's
Right.
good to know that I won't get a ticket at Talmadge. Okay, Russ, sorry about that.
no worries. So this is the replacement incident command unit is what we're requesting ARPA funds for. This is 250 out of the total project cost, which is 380. Initially, I had requested the full amount via ARPA funds and was asked to split it. So 250 from ARPA and then the remaining 130, which is in my capital request for FY24. I will actually cut to the if the core of this is why is it ARPA eligible? My first slide is that per the Department of Treasury, ARPA state and local recovery funds final rule of January 27th, Emergency Operations Center and Response and Equipment is specifically called out as a ARPA eligible fund. To quote, improvements to the construction of Emergency Operations Center or acquisition of emergency response equipment, e.g. emergency response radio systems, is explicitly called out in the federal guidance for the American Rescue Plan Act. Our last incident command unit was purchased with grant funds. It was at the time 2007, so there were grant programs from FEMA and others that that were used to purchase our previous unit. Those programs do not exist currently, so ARPA is the only grant source for this. And the nice thing, obviously, by using ARPA funds, we leave taxpayer dollars for projects that are not ARPA eligible. So I kind of jumped to the part just to right off the bat say that, the federal government's guidance is that this is an eligible purchase. So very quickly, the town has an incident command unit, which was acquired in 2007 with grant funds. It's an on-site command post for town officials and first responders to coordinate emergency, disasters, and large events. Most of the time it gets used with large events, large spectator events. We'll get into that. It was used during the COVID pandemic as an on-site command center for our health department, who used it actually at Waveney for the drive-through mass distributions. We were ready to use it for an on-site, actually I towed it out to the high school parking lot by Dunning. We were going to do the COVID test kit distributions, which never materialized. It was the one that the governor had. So it's used in multiple forms and was used during the pandemic most recently. And additionally, it serves as our backup EOC, Emergency Operations Center, in the event the police department's inaccessible, whether it's terrorism, natural disaster, or whatever. If you think post 9/11, we had the white powder scares. People were, that made it so people couldn't enter the building. So this serves as a mobile backup site for us. As I alluded to before, it's used at fires, hazmat incidents, mass casualty incidents, crime scenes. An example I would give there, and John DeFrederico and Andrew Walsh apologize they couldn't join us today. They're both out. But just so you know, at the Board of Selectmen meeting, we had Chief Bassett, Captain Amy Kennedy from EMS, as well as the chiefs from police, all in support of this, sitting with me when we presented this. At crime scenes and negotiations, crime scenes in particular, unfortunately, you think of some of the incidents that we've had recently, whether it was the immolation or the Downriver Road incident or the Doulos and things like that. Those investigations are, our police department's doing those from the hood of their patrol vehicles until state assets arrive many hours into the incident. So obviously this would get heavily used with any incident like that. This would be an invaluable tool for them. We get used at the fire department annual live burn training. It would be our backup EOC for the town, as I said. POD as a point of distribution, which is medical or other, which is what I was alluding to before when we said that we had the masks distribution sites, which we do at a remote facility where people can drive through. This allows that space for all of the administrative operations, plus as a place where it's warm and dry, because it seemed every time we were doing it was in the middle of winter. It also was used and will be used in major events. Caffeine and carburetors now down to 3 times a year, probably second only to the 4th of July is our largest event in town, where it's very important to have a central location, not only for your first responder agencies, but also town government to be located, managing and running these kind of events. The FCX of Waveney, which brings over 1,000 people in every year, caroling on the green, and things like the holiday stroll and the Halloween walk. It's very important to have a central location where government functions, and God forbid something happens, a central meeting point to be your command post to coordinate that response and incoming mutual aid units. There's agreement on the committee that it shouldn't be a trailer. The vehicle we had before didn't get used as much as it should have or could have, because it was a 35-foot trailer, and not a lot of people know how to tow a 35-foot trailer. Those who do were usually with the highway department and others, and were not available 24/7, right? They weren't there to get it out the door to an incident. The current unit needs replacement because the roof is leaking and it's not repairable, which means we're getting water on our radios and telephones and other sensitive electronic equipment. The body is rusting. Discussion with the highway service techs, they said the roof isn't repairable or really worth repairing because just the nature of the way that these are built, you just don't slap a new roof on them. And then there's a potential injury hazard because things like this, as the main entry stairway is starting to rust away. At some point will fail. The roof is leaking on the current unit. The cabinets are failing because of the water that's getting into them. We already discussed why this is specifically ARPA eligible. So in discussion with our committee, we're recommending the purchase of a mobile command unit. We've looked at a number of different vendors. And of course, the one that we think is a good fit for us is roughly in size similar to an ambulance. The total cost is $380. It's actually $350 with a contingency for whatever with inflation, unfortunately, even since we got the initial prices for these. Workstations for up to 5 representatives, which depending on what it might be, fire chief, police chief, first selectman, myself, or any number of other people. This is also just a mobile office. So anybody can use it in town government, whether it's, the health department doing on-site inspections, whether it's highway, whoever. It'd have generators and displays for bring your own device. We don't want to spend money or put computers in this per se, because as you may be aware, every time you turn a computer on, they haven't turned on it forever. You have to download updates forever. So everyone has a laptop or device, they just plug in and go. Heat and air conditioning, mass mounted surveillance camera, and a wireless modem. And the surveillance camera was a recommendation from PD. This unit actually is one that's in Nassau that they purchased. And the reason for the camera is actually the scenario that keeps coming to mind is the 4th of July, the lost kid. Every single 4th of July, there are lost children. And by being able to elevate a camera and have Zoom functionality, it would allow a surveillance tech, a police officer, to quickly survey the crowd looking for that individual. That's a picture of what the inside of it would look like. Again, this is just a unit that was built for Nassau and we think is a good fit for us. There's a lot of flavors. You can go down to a small Sprinter van, which we think is too small. There are huge trucks that similar to what you would see like a FedEx truck. We think that's too big. We don't need anything like that. So this seems like the right fit for us. So that's the proposal.
All right, so we'll go to the question to Amy.
Yeah, so Russ, just to put in perspective, I know a trailer versus a vehicle is a different thing. What did it cost in 2007 for the?
I do not know the answer to that question, unfortunately. That was predated my time with emergency management, and I think it was even before Mike Handler. I think it was Jim Cole, I think, was the one who acquired this, but I don't know. I know that when I was in discussion with LDV and another of the other people who make these, their trailers started at $220,000. So, and it was funny because you go from 200 to 220 for the trailers to 280 for a Sprinter van, where you spend an extra, 50 grand and you end up with an actual, really much more serviceable, useful vehicle.
Right.
It was surprising to me how expensive trailers were.
Yeah. So, but this, I think that when you presented to us, was it December? I think you ran this through us at Board of Finance at some point. So I think the price point said, it may be wrong. I thought it was more in the 250, and then did we price it out and realize that that's what it is, 380? Is that or maybe is my memory wrong? I just the 380 number kind of jumped out at me. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just curious.
Well, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I originally came to the Board of Finance with a request for a replacement trailer. And then that was for like 175, I want to say, 200. It was about 2 years ago. And since then, since it got tabled by Board of Finance anyways, and in a lot of discussions with our peers, everybody agreed that the trailer is not the way to go. We sat and said, who can actually tow this thing?
Hard. I agree. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Russ.
Hey, Russ.
Russ, quickly, wait a minute, can you just, Russ, did you say this? And I'm not sure if you did, because I was dealing with another issue here. Oh, no, you did. It's right there on the screen. Never mind. Okay, got it.
Hey, Russ, a quick question for me, and then I'm going to pass it to Christina. I see her hand is raised. Russ, where would the unit be kept, and other stuff like
Yes,
that?
very, very good question. Active discussion. So even if we order it now, we probably won't see it for 3 years because of the nature of building. The hope is the new police department. I've been in discussions with their building committee. That would be the most logical location, because the police department, as part of their national accreditation, actually have 2 officers whose responsibility is the maintenance and service checks on our current trailer. The question is making sure it'll fit within the new building. So I've been talking with Brian Humes to make sure that it'll fit in there. So I think that's the initial intention. And then if not, we've got discussion about potentially at the police training facility, which is part of the longer term police department building project. Part of it is the training facility, which will hopefully be used by fire, EMS, and emergency management, because as another aside, one of the things that keeps me up at night is the fact that our emergency supplies, we can't even get to them. They're buried in the basement of Saks and across 20 buildings in town. We don't have a central location to put any of this. So the hope is we can start to centralize this, and that's where this would live.
Okay, Christina, and then we'll go to Maria.
Yes, thank you. Russ, I just want clarification. Is it a trailer or is a vehicle self-driven?
Vehicle. There's a vehicle. So what we're proposing is an actual vehicle with a pickup truck front with a box built on the back, an aluminum box built on the back. So basically anybody could drive it. Doesn't require special licenses. Anybody who can drive an ambulance can drive this comfortably.
So are there any special internet capabilities within it? And if so, is it being protected from any malware?
Yes, so the intention is it will have 2 wireless modems, one AT&T and one Verizon. The reason being is cell's coverage in town, it's hit or miss, one of the 2. So we would have both to ensure we have coverage. And then we would be putting inside of it, would have a very small cabinet that would have, and I'm going to work with Chris Kaiser once we get approval for this, to have a small switch, a router, and a firewall in there so that it is secure for those people who are using it.
Maria?
Thank you.
Yep.
Will the older one still be in operation?
No, and it was a good question as to what will happen with it because of the fact that it's leaking and the roof is bad. As per town policy, would it have to be sold? And I imagine that it's probably it was what they call a toy hauler, which means the back door goes down. Originally, it was purchased with that configuration because we had received the donation from Silver Hill of their ATV, which police has and uses. And they thought they would use it to move the ATV around. Turned out they could get a license plate for it and they just drive it to wherever they're going now. So the answer to your question is it would probably be sold, and I would assume a landscaper would buy it or someone, because that's about all it's good for. Unless they were to, again, the same reason, it's not worth fixing the leaks in the roof because it's just not something you really can do. It's a structural component. Once you take the roof off, the whole thing just opens.
And so the last one lasted 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So if this is 360,000, have you looked into leasing one rather than just, do we need to buy one as a town?
My understanding is that, and I've asked a number of the other departments and agencies around, they don't lease these sorts of things because they're custom built, kind of like an ambulance or a fire truck, right? So there isn't a lease program that I'm aware of. And the intention would be is we want this stored inside. So it would, because the trailer was outside. That was part of the problem that we had, to have this stored indoors and preserved. And just like a fire truck, have it have a 20-year lifespan. You buy one and you keep it for a long time. And then obviously you by keeping it indoors, you ensure that.
Because I did kind of Google command unit rentals. I mean, there's some not in Connecticut, I guess, but I'm just curious, is there a benefit to buying it versus?
You You can rent them for events. So if you had a specific event, i.e. the Super Bowl, you could rent one for that duration of that event. However, if you have a large scale disaster or emergency, everybody and his brother will be trying to use the same limited resources, and you'd be competing trying to get that asset. So
Oh, I meant long-term lease, like you just, a lease payment versus 360,000 upfront. Just a thought.
No, I understand. I'm happy to look into it. My understanding is I've not heard of anyone who does that. And given the fact that ARPA funds specifically are aligned with these kind of activities, it seemed like a home run. And it's something that made sense for us to have a capability to be, that best in class public safety for New Canaan.
I would suspect, Maria, that a lease would be more expensive over the duration of time, just given the way it's going to be, the way they're trying to make money and finance it. So that would be my only comment. Penny, you're there now. Do you have anything?
I am. No, everybody asked the questions I had in my mind.
Okay, if no more.
I just one question, just in terms of timing, Russ. In terms of, is this like, I think you said maybe a 2 to 3 year delivery on this facility, this truck, right? So I just want to make sure that we expend the ARPA money on time. Do we have to get it, Tucker, we have to spend it through June? Is it June 24th?
No, committed by June
Okay,
2020.
fine. That was the only concern. All right, thank you.
Tucker, procedurally, can we, should we separate vote on or should we just wait?
I think so.
Okay.
I think you should hear both and then maybe go back and vote on them individually.
Great. Russ, thanks for your time and the presentation.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for the very insightful questions. And Amy, I'll do a little more digging on the leasing side, but like I said, I don't think that exists or would be financially as beneficial as it might appear at first glance, but I'll do some digging.
Okay, now we'll turn it over to Patricia for the town players portion.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for inviting me to give you an update on where we're at. Tucker, do you want to add me so I can share? Thank you. Okay, can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so let me bring that up. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you again for inviting us. So I'm again Patricia Spagani from the Town Players of New Canaan, responsible for community outreach as well as our fundraising efforts for our capital campaign. Appreciate the opportunity to come back as we did last year when we first came and made a request to the town to support contributing to our improvements that we'd like to make to the physical building of the Powerhouse Theater at Waveney Park, which includes the town's objective to add ADA compliant restrooms to the theater for its patrons. So we've met with the Board of Selectmen again a few weeks ago, and they continue to support unanimously the request for $500,000, 250 of which is being addressed by this committee for ARPA funds. And the other is in Tiger's budget for the Department of Public Works. And then we'll have after this a follow-up meeting with the Board of Finance, and then at some point the Town Council for the budget review. So what I thought I would do is just give you a very brief update of where we are, Town Players, since we last spoke with you a year ago. I'm happy to say that coming out of COVID, we have had record attendance and participation at the theater. The last few years before COVID were very strong, but we're actually seeing more people coming back. And that's very rewarding because some of the other theaters in our community, including the Westport Country Playhouse, have seen declining audiences where they actually had to cancel some of their productions in the upcoming season. So we're not seeing that problem. We've got several sold out shows that from earlier this season, and coming back strong, looking forward to Ordinary People, which is opening. So just a reminder, we are an all volunteer theater. We've put in over 17,000 hours in 2022 for volunteer effort. And we've really doubled down and focused on our community involvement. So we've had the National Charity League continues to usher for us, and we've had several Eagle Scout projects at the theater over the last several months. We led with the Chamber of Commerce, the stage of the holiday stroll. We have been awarding student scholarships to local teenagers and students. And we are committed to our community outreach with our productions, pre-COVID with STEM, Rocket Girl, and then now our focus on mental health awareness with what we're doing with Ordinary People. And our partnerships include working with Bethany Zaro from the New Canaan Human Services, as well as Silver Hill Hospital, where both Dr. Michael Grote, the Chief Clinical Officer, and Dr. Gerber, their president and medical director, are both participating in audience talkbacks, including, I should add, the New Canaan High School Mental Health Club is working with us to sponsor a teen-only event that will be free for them on Saturday, March 4th. So we're really excited about doing that. And we're saying, gee, if you want to come as an adult, one, you have to pay, but you really need to be accompanied by a minor. So we're looking forward to that. And I think, you know, I'll pause here because this really speaks to why we think this ARPA grant is appropriate, because we are supporting the community. It speaks to the growth, which in future development of our community, so that we can establish a much more inviting theater for our residents and the community at large. And also sponsoring or supporting the economic development in the community. So both from a community wellness as well as economic development, because the other 50% or even the New Canaan residents that come to our plays, they're eating in town. If people have to travel a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour to come to the theater, they're eating locally, right? They're not going to eat at home and then come to the theater. So we know that that's happening from the feedback that we get from people that come into the theater. We're also seeing new people, new residents come to the theater. At Joyful Noise that we just had, it was really rewarding to see one family come with 3 generations that said, we usually go to our Broadway theater, but we decided to try the local theater. Middle generation adult was moving to town and said, never been here, just wanted to see, and we'll be back. Love the production. So it was really rewarding. So that's what we're doing. And just to remind you, this wonderful model, which matches the picture here on the screen, our intent with the additional lobby space, which will more than double what we currently have, is to use it for rehearsals as well as community-based events and smaller performances. We really envision increasing what we're doing with students and teens and youth in our community and making it more hands-on and inviting and more up to date. So that's the project, as you know. Just an update on the financials, because you're getting a preview for what we'll be sharing with the Board of Finance. The cost of the project is increased just because of inflation, both for labor and materials costs. So I will share you a little bit of that detail next, but we continue to build in the contingency. We're hoping that the costs don't go up any more than this, but that's where we are now at about 1.1 million. And in terms of the funding, or the source of the funding, with the $500,000 that has been requested of the town overall, plus the funds that were already appropriated or approved in the prior year's budget for the ADA restrooms, that makes the total town contribution of $575,000. And then leaving with the town of, town players of New Canaan, we have raised an additional $500,000 and have an outstanding capital request or grant of $50,000. So we're pretty close to the over half of what we are looking to raise ourselves, which is leaving us with about 250,000 that we need to raise. You may be aware that we have hired a fundraising consultant to work with us, and I think we've made good progress in terms of building awareness and relationships on that process. And I'll just share with you the details that we have from the architects, which for the actual costs of the project, to lay that out in a little bit more detail than we had before. And this has also been reviewed. Tiger took this to Alden Bailey, who has been working with the town on other projects, just to make sure that we were in line. And they reviewed the architectural diagrams and confirmed that this was a reasonable estimate. So we're very confident in those costs at this point. So again, our request for you today is to consider the $250,000 ARPA request so that it can go forward to the Board of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thanks for the details on the capital project, and congratulations on your fundraising efforts. I know that's an important part of getting this over the finish line. Any questions?
Hey, Patricia, it's Amy. How has your funding profile for this, has it changed versus what you brought a year before in terms of where you're looking for the support? I mean, is there more on like the all-in costs? I think you're showing are 1.12, and that's exclusive of the ADA bathrooms, the freestanding bathrooms, right?
That is it's including the theater ADA bathrooms,
Right, but not the other.
not the outside, which is a totally separate project.
Yeah.
Important, but a separate project in terms of the budget, which
Right.
has already been funded separately.
Yeah, but this is assuming you guys take over the potting shed and we do a freestanding bathroom attached on the outside, right? That's the plan? You
That
take-
is the overall plan for the campus, but
Right.
not represented here.
Right,
But
the town part, Amy, is the
I know.
town is building those bathrooms, right?
I get it, but initially we were going to do in the potting shed and now it's different. So it's all kind of combined. I'm just, right? Because initially we were just going to do the potting shed and then the alternative thought was to do the separate ones and roll over the potting shed.
For the
So my
public
question-
space, that's
Yeah,
right.
my question for you, Patricia, from what we looked at last year in terms of the proposal of how this potential rebuild is funded, has the ratio of supports that you're asking stayed the same in terms of town
Yes,
portion?
yes, I would
That
say
hasn't
it's pretty much 50-50. Right?
Okay.
That's why I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged the funds that had already been set aside for the, which is a town responsibility to put ADA bathrooms in the theater. Right? So that money's already been set aside in 2019 or 2018 when the building review was done.
Right, and then when we talked last year, we said, is there anything you can sharpen your pencils to bring the costs down, downsize it? Nothing's changed. The entire plan is the same. So what you're bringing us is the same as last year, no change in terms of what you're proposing. Is that
That's
correct?
true. So the plan and the design has stayed the same. We've continued to look at it. What's advanced, the plan is, the design is the same. What has continued to happen is that the structural engineer that's part of the program has done his magic, and we now have very complete blueprints on the structure itself and how it would be built. It's not just a pretty picture. So that work has been done and completed, which allowed us to get a more accurate or confirm that the costs reflect the costs, right? As opposed to it being just the costs from the estimate from the architects.
Okay, so yeah, so it's exactly nothing scale back, nothing to reduce the scope of it, because the question that people had is like, it's a lot of money for a lobby. But that being said, that's my question on that. So
Okay, there. Thank you.
Maria, I see your hand.
This is probably more for Tucker. Is there a current grid of what we've allocated already and what's left after
It's-
this?
Yeah, it's the same that you've had. Nothing's changed.
We haven't approved anything since last September.
Right.
But the
So-
Playhouse, did the Playhouse, we already approved some funds for the Playhouse? Or am I-
Powerhouse, not Playhouse, Powerhouse.
Okay,
Yeah, and, but not ARPA funds, no.
Powerhouse, I mean. Okay,
Now, the Board of Selectmen did, and that's why you all are reviewing it now. So, just to summarize though, on the remaining allocation, we have allocated, all approvals have been received on almost 5 million. We have 800,000 still in the approval process, and these two being part of this.
and after these two.
The only things that have gone through Board of Selectmen is still the Mead Park question. And then there's still, we know we've still got the St. A's that the Board of Selectmen had reviewed and wanted more information.
Mhm,
That didn't get through Board of Selectmen yet,
right,
right? So that's on that's on here in terms of a placeholder, but not through the Board of Selectmen piece yet. So that would be the next step.
So that would leave about 300,000
Mhm.
unassigned,
Yes,
right? If these, two move forward.
yeah, if we,
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
if you include the Mead Park, if you include the incident command vehicle at 250, Mead Park at 300, town players at 250. If, again, as a placeholder, we've got 150 for St. A's, that would leave us with 47,000 left to allocate.
But we're not talking about me yet anyway, so we're just talking
No.
about.
Right, just
Yeah.
these,
Right.
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Board of Selectmen had approved, but we're not
Correct.
discussing it. So, and Maria acknowledging we got your email, so.
Thank you.
And yes, this committee had talked about funding for early childhood slots in town, so something that we had hoping or
Right.
thought was a good use. So just acknowledging your email so that it's not lost on the committee here.
Well, I think benefit to what we're hearing today, it benefits the youth, and so.
Yeah.
I feel like we all kind of agreed that this was a good use of funds, both of these items today, but especially the theater and the lobby. I feel like we've talked about it a million times.
Yeah,
And-
well, no, Maria, I agree, and my the goal is to, I don't really think it should get hung up in this committee that, we have how many people on Board of Finance and Town Council that should have an understanding of what's going on and their voices be heard. So, with that said, unless there's any other questions, I'll make a motion unless there's any more questions.
Yeah, but Mark, I agree with you. Depending on how people feel, they may support it or not, but it's probably not appropriate for us to block greater consideration by the bigger town bodies. And that's kind of where I'm in your camp on that. It's not up to 5 of us to say yes
Yeah.
or no. Right?
You're one person, we're 4, and those two bodies are very representative. So it seems appropriate to move them on. That's my opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the way you're going to vote when you're sitting on your council, but nonetheless. So unless there's any other questions.
So let's move them on.
Let's move on. So I'll motion to approve the $250,000 for the incident command vehicle and $250 for the town players.
Fine.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Penny, all in favor?
Aye, Christina.
Okay, that's unanimous. And
There will be an update tomorrow night at the town council. So Russ and Patricia, if you're available, just because this will now go, this is the next round. So, but the Board of Finance has to approve it before the town council. So tomorrow night will strictly just be Mark giving an update as to the fact that you all heard this and now it's moving on to the Board of Finance.
Not me, but Amy.
No,
Right,
we have Board of Finance tonight and.
Yeah.
right.
today.
It's not on the agenda. It'll have to go on.
Oh,
I-
yeah,
but I-
tomorrow, sorry, my
But
bad,
I
town
think,
council.
I
tomorrow.
think it's a line item in Tiger's capital ask. So it's kind of sort of on.
Right, so I was thinking that we were going to, here at the Board of Finance was going to deliberate on it on the 28th.
That's fine. That's fine.
And because, I mean, both items have money within the overall capital plan, so you're gonna hear both of them, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
good. All right, well, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Oh, sounds good.
All
Thank
right,
you all.
have
Thank
a
you for
good,
your support. Thank
Bye.
you.
thank you,
Thanks.
thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great day.